Book report. It's a book report. It's a book report about a movie. 'Cause that makes sense. Alex.
Jesse.
We're back.
Yes, we are.
Just you and me.
Yeah.
You and me having a sexy time on the beach with each other with no Jeff Casino.
No, he's been replaced by a French couple.
Yeah, he's been replaced by many annoying characters that we'll get to. But no, so it's funny though, right? Because the last time we did a book report, it's because Jeff Casino could not show up. And so we did Stargate with zero preparation. This time, it's very similar, except Jeff Casino didn't just not show up. He just, or he didn't tell us he wasn't going to show up. He just didn't show up.
No show.
So we've been waiting for half an hour, and we're like, well, yeah, that's right, Jeff, calling you out, you bitch, if you listen to this later. So we're like, okay. Alex had recommended this movie, The Beach, to me some time ago, and I watched it, and I really, really didn't like it. But I remember it. I remember it very well. So I was like, okay, we could do a book report on The Beach. So we're not prepared at all.
But this will be a wonderful discussion because I still love it, and I watch it all the time. And
That's
I told
so strange.
Jesse I watch it about 5 or 6 times a year.
I don't think you told me that. I don't think you told me. That's an astonishing number.
Yeah, I don't know why I do it, but I do.
Is it like tied into some time in your life, like some feeling that you had or something like that?
It definitely. That is the crux of my relationship with this movie. It just does it on so many levels, but it does it in such a way that is like, I can't coherently explain how it does it.
Okay, well, let's set it up real quick. So The Beach is the year 2000 film from the director Danny Boyle, who I really like. I really like Danny Boyle. I like 28 Days Later, Train Spotting, Sunshine is a really interesting movie, Slumdog Millionaire, 127 Hours I'm kind of meh on, but that's its own conversation. But do you want to explain, if people haven't seen The Beach, what is the deal with it? Yeah,
so it stars Leo.
Leo.
Right around the time, I feel like, obviously he's riding the crest of fame from the Titanic, but he
was king of the world.
Yeah, he was, and king of the world decided that he didn't want to like look at himself in the mirror anymore, or go out to the parade and show off his fancy new clothes. He decided he wanted to kind of retreat and get more deep into some scripts and some characters. At least that's my theory, and I'm going to stick with it because I don't care.
Okay. And also because, like we said, we've done no research.
Yes.
This is completely spur of the moment.
So the movie is about a young American traveler who decides that, he's just going to go to Bangkok. And it could be like a college student. It could be just, spur of the moment type of travel. Either way, he's a young American dude just going around the Southeast Asian Pacific area. He's staying at a hotel, and his, I almost said roommate, but like a hotel mate? Hallway mate? I don't know.
It's weird because they have like these spaces at the top of their rooms where they can just peer over.
Yeah.
So if the people next to you are having sex, you can just look over this like straw wall and be like, hey, what's going on? You guys got a joint?
It's like tropical bungalow setup locale,
You guys got some booze?
Yeah, exactly. And he meets this very interesting character named Daffy, who's played by Robert Carlyle, I believe is his name.
I don't even know who that is.
He's in a lot of Danny Boyle movies. He's in Train Spotting as Begbie, the crazy Scotsman. But he meets this character who's like obviously touched and deranged in the head, and he tells him about this like mythical, fantastical place on this island where there are like no rules, or it's like there are rules, but it's like utopian, and there's all this pot that you can smoke, and
does he set it up? I feel like he doesn't set it up that it's utopian. I don't think he tells Leo that there's like a community there. He just says this place is untouched by like tourism. It's
You're right.
completely virgin
You're right.
or whatever, right? Because Leo's whole thing going into the film is like, he's like, oh, these places are all touristy.
Yes.
That's his big like bugbear.
Yes.
And so Daffy's like, go to this place. He gives him the map. He's like, this place is the shit. And so Leo's like, okay. He expects it to be totally virgin.
Mm-hmm. And after that, he commits suicide. Daffy, this guy. But he leaves him the map, right? And so Leo decides to take the map and go on this wild and crazy adventure. And he meets a French couple who's traveling as well, doing the same thing he is along the way.
Yeah, he's got the hots for the lady.
Yeah. I think that's probably why he tells them about it, but
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
it's a very interesting trio of travelers at first.
If you say so.
So they finally get to this one point where there's supposed to be like this beautiful hidden beach, and
It's a community.
they find a community of like, you know, hippie patchouli oil living off the land type people, just
Chilling on the beach, brah.
yeah, exactly, just out in Thailand,
Hanging out, eating coconuts, brah.
smoking weed that we steal
Smoking
from
weed,
the
brah.
giant drug operation that
Oh, yeah,
operates
there's
also
a
on
giant
the
drug
island.
operation next door. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's that as well.
So that's pretty much the setup, and it's less about the adventure and more about the friends we made along no, it's about the fucking breakdown of the society that he finds, who has some nefarious and like hidden agendas.
Yeah. Well, we won't worry anymore about signposting what the plot is about. We'll start talking about it. If you want to see it, Alex recommends it. It has Leo. I don't recommend it, but I do think it's an interesting movie. I saw it. When did I see it? Over a month ago now, I think.
Yeah,
when
probably.
I messaged you, and
Yeah.
I was like, I did not like that thing. But it has not left my brain as well. It's not like an easily forgettable movie, which is I think is down to the direction. Like,
Yeah.
whenever you see a movie by an interesting filmmaker and it's a failure, it's always an interesting failure. And that's, to me, going to stick in my brain more so than something that's average. You know, like, I don't know, the Tomorrow War or something.
That is
something
true.
completely forgettable.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, like, why do you like this movie? I just have to, like let's play that game, right?
So
Because I don't get it.
the first time I saw the movie, I think I was in a spot in life where I just wasn't feeling like my surrounding environment, right? Like I was like, I don't like the friends I'm with, or I can't get the girl that I want to get with, or something stupid like that, you know? Because this movie came out in 2000, so I'm around 10, 11 at this time. And I saw this journey of just, you know, throwing yourself into like a totally foreign environment. And I'm like, that's cool. I want to be this like swashbuckling American tourist that just, you know, doesn't have a
Who
care in the
battles
world.
sharks.
Yeah, exactly. He's not swashbuckling, by the way.
He's not swashbuckling
he is handsome,
at all.
but he's not.
This is not Errol Flynn.
Yeah, he's a funny little like early 2000s college boy. I don't know. He wears like puka shells and shit like that, and spikes his hair up with crusty gel. You know, so
Yeah. So like I've traveled a lot. I've done a pretty good amount. Not as much as many, but you know, I've been a lot of places, and like this guy is not the kind of guy I would have hung out with at the hostel. I'll just say that much.
yeah,
But it's more like
he's a loner.
this movie annoyed me. This movie annoyed me greatly.
Really?
And I think it's to do with the characters, first of all. Leo, I never got a handle on why I should care about him, because he was just like, I'm an American kid who, I don't know, he wants to do the not tourist thing, I guess. I don't know what his personality is beyond, I guess, like the shell that you put forth, that the 10-year-old you felt. I could see that. I could totally see that. But watching this as like a 30-year-old, I'm like, I find these characters shallow. I find them shallow. And then when he gets to the commune, I immediately felt gross. And I was like, this is a terrible place to be. This would be
Really?
a terrible place to be. Yeah. because it's like it's this incestuous environment with like 20 to 50 people, and you're not allowed to leave, and it's like that place would not be a nice place to be. It just wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could describe that exactly. Other
than the climate, right? Like, and maybe a few of the characters, but like you wouldn't want to live in a commune with them. I would say that the love story in this movie was what I was really attached to at the very beginning when I first saw it as a young kid. And it's slowly dwindled away, and I think it's probably the weakest part of the movie now. And the tone that you're describing of it being like kind of like a paradise, but it's not actually one, has also grown as I've watched the movie. It's much darker, like now, watching it. You're like you said, you're like, this, while it's kind of cool that I was able to find a map and find this interesting beach and this community, it's like not a place you want to be forever.
I would have immediately wanted to go home. I would see the writing on the wall, and I think that's the problem is like, yes, it's about like when you get down to brass tacks and you look at the whole of the movie, it's about the psychological and sort of like cultural degradation of this little society on the beach that Leo finds himself in. But in order for that to function the way that Danny Boyle, the director, wants it to function, you have to kind of buy in to the atmosphere of it in the beginning, where you think it's like a paradise. Mm-hmm. Whereas I was immediately like grossed out.
Okay.
I was like, wait, they can't leave, and like one girl left another guy for another guy, but you still have to live there, and like if your tooth gets pulled, you can't go to a doctor. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It was grotesque, and I didn't like the characters, and I just felt kind of, I don't know, Alex, I just felt gross about it. I was like, I don't want to be here.
You're like the chef.
The movie thought I wanted to be there, and it treated me like I wanted to be there, but I didn't want to be there, and it kept me there.
Oh, yes,
it would have been more interesting if Leo didn't want to be there at all, and he's like, this place is a fucking nightmare.
I mean,
and they just kept him.
Towards the end, it was kind of like that, right? Like, it was like, towards the end, it was like he figured out how Sal, I think is her name, the leader, Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, he finds out how dark and twisted she actually is, and how much of a hellscape this place actually is. So he like goes off on his own, right? He gets isolated and ostracized from the group, right? Because he's had a number of social faux pas.
This is where the movie gets weird.
Oh yes, when he starts getting weird and like losing his mind. And I liked how crazy the stakes got, I feel like, in an instant in the movie. Because at first it was just kind of like, oh man, these hippies are kind of weird. It's kind of like a cult, you know? But there's coconuts, there's fish.
There's Game Boy. You can play Game Boy.
A beautiful French woman. Yeah, exactly. But then at the end, it's like, oh god, these guys have AK-47s. Like,
yeah,
they're
farmers.
Killing these stoner kids.
That's the best part.
Yeah, that part was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, because he gives the map to those guys in the beginning, and I mean, you had to have seen this coming, even when you were 11, right? You're like,
he fucked up.
You're like, this is gonna come back to bite him. Those guys that he gave the map to are totally gonna show up.
Those guys were douchebags, right? Even more than Leo.
Even more than Leo. Yeah, I think I texted you after I watched the movie. We were talking, and I was like, had you seen Apocalypse Now before you had seen this?
Yeah.
Because this is like in my opinion, a bad Colonel Kurtz origin story. Because the way that he goes insane in the jungle is like, it's just very Apocalypse Now. It's very Francis Ford Coppola.
The horror,
but it utilizes a tone which isn't that. It's like, it's almost cheeky and irreverent, and it uses visual imagery that's like Game Boy imagery.
Oh my God.
This is why this movie is interesting to me, even though I don't like it. I think it's an interesting attempt to do multiple things, like one of which is the degradation of this society and seeing its like dark side of paradise kind of thing. And the other part is when Leo starts to lose his marbles, and he's like running around in the forest by himself, and has no contact with anybody. He's like sneaking into the pot farmers' grove and like stealing their hats and shit. Mm-hmm. And you're like, what's going on here? And I think if the movie at that point had leaned full on into Leo being insane and carried that into its climax, I would have been much more appreciative of what Danny Boyle was trying to do. But what it ends up doing is like, do you want to jump in? I was going to get to the ending.
No, yes, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to talk about that too.
It backtracks on all of that. At the end, I don't remember exactly what it does, but Leo just goes completely back to normal, and he sends some emails. I don't remember exactly what they were, but they're to the effect of like, it's just some placative bullshit for the audience that's written so terribly to fool you into thinking this movie is about something when it wasn't.
I love that reading. Because I don't read it that way myself, because I just have to enjoy this movie because I watch it 6 times a year. But it's 100% true. Like the ending where he's like sitting in that internet cafe, you know, and there's like that email he gets from Francois, and it's like it's a photo of all of them, and then there's like that superimposed like MS Paint writing, you know, across the screen. Yeah, that part is interesting. I think that part speaks to, I talk about this a lot, that like early 2000 millennium, like this is the new millennium vibe, you know? It's like almost like a neo pseudo hippie spirituality about the world, just because there's 3 zeros at the end of the year for some reason. But the way that the society breaks down, like the trick that he pulls, like the volta, you know, the turn of the movie, is I like that part a lot. Remind
me, what was the turn?
So the turn is he goes back to the village and he's explaining how shitty Sal is and why they're like, they need to get out of there and everything. And Sal's like having her own mental breakdown because she's like, it's the perfect community. It can't like be destroyed. And she has a gun.
Because the Swedish guys get like eaten by a shark basically, and 2 of them die, but 1 of them survives.
Exactly.
And he's like sitting there in agony, and they're like, yes, everyone just wants to have a good time, so just drag him out into the fucking the forest and let him die in a tent, and everyone just keeps on partying. You're like, who the fuck are you? Fuck all of you. Yeah. That's where I was like, I like the French guy the most, because he's like, I'm the only human here.
Exactly.
I got dumped by my beautiful French girlfriend for Leo fucking DiCaprio, who can't even act properly yet. And I have to live in this community, and now I'm the only person who's going to take care of somebody who actually got physically injured. Like, and I was like, oh, that's the one human in the movie.
And and it's like they force them. That's it, right? That's like the problem of this paradise, is like there's so much pain and suffering, and it's like people think it's like the whole, oh, I'm doing the paleo diet, or, you know, this is what they did when people were cavemen, you know, I'm just trying to go back to my roots. And you're like, well, people also died at the age of 30 on a regular basis then too, you know, like antiseptics, leading into another movie that we'll be talking about later, is a great invention. It's good that antiseptics and antibiotics are invented. However, the turn is when Sal pulls the trigger of an empty gun and actually intends to shoot Leo, and everyone sees that, right? And it's like, how can you have this utopia when your leader was willing to just shoot Leo? And he tricks her into doing that, and then everyone, like, you see everyone collectively lose their shit. And I love that part. They're like, fuck this place. I think you see someone roll out of like a hammock or some shit, and they're like, I'm out of here. Like, I don't know.
Turn off their Game Boy.
Exactly.
Put down their coconut. They're like, maybe not.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that's the strongest scene in the movie, because it's the climax of all of these elements that Danny was trying to do, where it's like Leo going full on into not give a fuck mode, for one. And that's clashing with the general degradation, like psychologically, of this society. Or maybe not degradation, but just like having doubts, I guess. Because the doubts are going to be there if you're a genuine human. if one of your brothers who you lived beside for years is out in the jungle screaming of agony because their leg is covered in gangrene and they're gonna fucking die, and all you're doing is just partying. Yeah, it was a good scene. That was a good scene.
So I've always saved this because I have never had a movie podcast discussion to have it on. But I've always saved this kernel of an idea that was not mine, unfortunately.
Well, you're welcome.
I know. Thank you. And so, little quick history. I was in an AA meeting, not for myself, but because it was like I had to go, you know?
Of course.
For another thing that it was like, okay. I was a kid and the judge was like, you need to go to AA meetings. So I went to just random ones and I had them sign the little card, and it was a cool experience. But there was a guy one time who was talking about this movie, and he related this movie to his lifelong abuse of drugs and alcohol. And I was like, holy shit, that makes perfect sense. It's all just an allegory for drug addiction. And it's like the drug addiction thing is like not in the movie because it's weed, you know, but it's like there's drugs in the movie.
It's
but
vaguely in there.
Yeah, it's more about this idea that people you go out into this world like almost new as an adult, right? You're like reborn. You're like, I have all this agency. I can do whatever I want, you know? I can put things in my body that I've never put in before.
I'm 19 and very smart.
Exactly. And it's like you go out, you hear about this beautiful like beach, this unattainable like high, you know? You drink, you get high.
I'm with you.
Yeah, and you go on this journey and it's good for a little while. And then things start to happen and people start to get hurt. You start to like do things that you would never do in the first place, like steal someone's girlfriend who is also supposed to be like your travel buddy and companion, you know, who's also like helped you along, like and then it just all falls apart into this like mess of nothingness, and then you have to slowly recede back into like normal life.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have thoughts. Number one, I'll try to lay these out while I'm still on cocktail number 2 and not cocktail number 3. Number one, and I'll just ask these, do you think Danny Boyle intended that? And number 2, do you think it's successful at doing that? If, like for me, to relate to that analogy, I could see that, but I don't think it's my drug of choice because I felt bad taking the drug to begin with. I was like, I don't like this drug. So
yeah, maybe
the withdrawals didn't hit me. And I forgot number 3 already because that's how my brain works. My brain is like a tiny sparrow, a small bird of some type. But let's go with number 1. Like, do you think Danny Boyle intended that? Because I think you can relate that to almost anything that's a journey. If any movie has a journey where it's good and then it's bad, you can liken it to anything else that's good and then it's bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's very general.
I think that the idea of like the beach hones it down a little more, like this idea of the society where everyone else is also on the high, and you make friends with people who like you use with along the way, you know, but there are some shady figures as well. I think that it's a little more specific metaphorically, but obviously when you pull it out, like, and look at it from a more macro view, yes, it's almost like the hero's journey, right? Like, you can apply the hero's journey to drug addiction and overcoming that and recovery in the same way that you could apply the hero's journey to like a war story, or the story about growing up, or the story about the dog who lost his way. You know, it's like, you're right, but I don't think that Danny Boyle meant that. I don't think so either. I don't think he had that in his mind at all when he was making the movie. Especially because with that analogy at the end, he picks up the pieces so easily.
You just send a few emails. If you were going with the hardcore drug analogy, like, the end would make no sense. You'd be like, oh, I guess you can just kick heroin in a day and be like, oh, I think I'll go back. Like, no, it doesn't exactly work like that, actually. Trick your friend into fake shooting you, kick the drugs, go to a
Cyber Cafe, send a few emails, and play some Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I don't
Done.
know. I don't know what I don't understand what this movie was, because it's not a drug addiction thing. This isn't Requiem for a Dream, okay?
That movie is extremely literal drug addiction.
You're not going to end with Leo and his buddy going ass to ass for heroin. Oh, that would have been interesting as well.
That would have been, yeah.
It would have been much darker.
Leo, instead of finding the beach, gets sold on the Southeast Asian human sex trafficking market. And
gets addicted to drugs. He has to have Liam Neeson save him in the sequel.
Jesus, as Qui-Gon.
Liam Neeson busts in with guns blazing.
Oh.
I'd watch that. I'd watch that duology.
I was thinking with his lightsaber, just as Qui-Gon Jinn, but from Taken.
I will never be talking about Qui-Gon Jinn. No, that's not a reference I make. Make reference to George Lucas, not so much the characters in that shit show. But no, it's a weird ass movie because it's like, I think my problem, and maybe it's a me problem. I'm completely willing to put that out there because I'm fucking weird. I'm my own entity, and what I find relatable in movies is not generally what other people find relatable. Mm-hmm. I mean, cue any number of clips of me talking about Roland Emmerich films and how Independence Day and Stargate and all these movies that people love are gigantic piles of shit. Like the things that I relate to in movies are niche because I'm niche. Not to say I'm above or below. Not saying that. Just saying I'm weird. But like the point is, nobody in this movie captured me. I wasn't interested in any of them. I didn't like any of them.
Is it Roland Emmerich
and I didn't
level?
like the community.
Like, is it a Roland Emmerich level, like Stargate pile of shit for you?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. This is an interesting failure.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting movie. I think
because he is a good filmmaker, right?
He is. We listed a whole bunch of his movies that I like and we like.
Yeah.
And I like him.
I mean, Trainspotting is legendary for me.
Trainspotting is legendary. I still need to see the second one. I haven't seen the second one.
I like it a lot, but
I think we'll do that. I think we'll do that for a Reel Weirdos episode. We'll do number 1 and 2 together.
I would love that.
But what was my point? You can't derail me like that, Alex. My brain is too fickle.
I'm sorry, I'm messing with
talking about relatability. Yeah, and Danny Boyle. No, it's not Roland Emmerich level. My point with that was just to say, like, the things that I like aren't necessarily what everyone likes, but you guys knew that already if you listen to this show. It's an interesting failure, and I think if you like movies and you like analyzing what makes cinema work or not work, even if it won't be for you, I think it's worth watching because it's interesting. Mm-hmm. It's interesting in the way that it tries to do like 5 different movies and half succeeds at maybe 2 of them. I don't know. It's a weird movie. I've never seen anything quite like it.
Yeah, you know, I feel like for the time that it came out too, it was interesting because it just stood out to me as different in a way. Maybe almost too different. You know, like the whole scene with the video game graphics and everything. I was like, what is this? And I just couldn't look away. It's one of those movies I just can't look away. And I think that's why I watch it so much. And it's not one of those movies that, like, I'm just watching TV and it's on, right? That experience rarely happens to me nowadays. This is a movie I, like, seek out 5 or 6 times a year.
It's so fucking... Dude, that's so much.
I just turn it over in my head over and over because I feel like it has so many problems, but there's something underneath it. It's like I have this boulder or this rock that is so ugly, but inside it's like shining or like glowing and I can like feel it.
You spent 15 years like chipping away with a tiny hammer at this boulder. You're like, there's gold in them hills.
Exactly. With my teeth. Like
you're like an old prospector. You're like, there's got to be gold left in this mine. You're like, no, dude, it's been mined out. You've been mining it. You've spent 6 months out of the year mining it for the last 15 years. Stop. Stop. You're like, oh, there's gold in them hills. Give me some donkeys and some whiskey and some water, some hardtack. I got to mine the beach some more. You're like, Alex, stop. You're going to lose your mind. Dude,
I
you're
know,
crazy.
seriously.
Even like Divorced from the Beach, the fact that you rewatch anything that much is wild to me.
I love. Yeah, I know. I'm a habitual rewatcher. I don't know what it is.
But that's like a level.
Oh yeah, it is.
That's like that's a plateau. It's a plateau that's like, maybe you're like your uncle. You just got to rewatch Death Race 2000
yes,
5 times a year.
I know.
Because like we were going to do Donnie Darko tonight. Spoilers! But I don't give a fuck. We'll talk about it later. It's amazing. Go watch it. And I love that movie. And I hadn't seen it in like a decade. Yeah, there are movies that I genuinely just love. The most I'll watch them is once a year.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't know. This movie and I have a very, very strange relationship, and I
still don't get
know
it.
What it is?
You don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the British guy. I love the Swedish guys. I love the line when he's like, what does he say? The 3 pillars of civilization: Christianity. I forgot the second one. And cricket.
I don't even remember what you're talking about. I remember when Leo has sex with Tilda Swinton. I remember that.
That scene was very disturbing.
What are you talking about? That was erotic as shit.
Yeah, that scene was pretty crazy.
I had my hand down Jeff's pants. We were watching it together.
I want to see it would be interesting to know what our third member has to say about this movie. I feel like I could snag him. I'm gonna call him out again. It's been an hour since we were supposed to record Donnie Darko. Yes.
He still has not shown up. That motherfucker.
No,
I think he just fell asleep. He fell asleep.
Are we gonna have to document a write-up?
Yeah, make him write a treatise on the beach for the Reel Weirdos website.
Yeah.
I think we should. I think that should be his punishment. Instead of making him watch more Tim Allen films.
It is history for the Reel Weirdos, I will say. We've never had a no-call, no-show. We've had plenty of last-minute cancellations and reschedulings, but never a no-call, no-show.
Yeah, we've had many reschedulings, never a no-call, no-show. It is Reel Weirdos history, and that is what has spawned this beautiful episode with zero research attached, or very like tangential research.
Not that the movies are comparable in any
Alex,
way.
hold on to that. I have to pee so bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then we'll keep going. Let not anyone ever say there's nothing to be had satisfying in humanity, because sometimes, man, a good piss, it's nothing like it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to edit that together with a roar. But continue. What was your question?
Not that the journeys are anyway related, or films necessarily, but
Barry Lyndon?
No, the Birdman of Alcatraz.
Oh, the Birdman of Alcatraz. Okay.
Yeah, what did you think of that?
So yeah, Alex knew that I was on this odyssey. I've been on this odyssey since the beginning of last year, where I started in the year 1939.
Nice.
And cobbled together a list that generally just evolved as I started watching movies, kept watching movies. I was like, oh, what's this director? What's this actor? Add him to the list. Because I wanted to get a sort of general, I guess, holistic view of movies. I don't know. Like, movies are my obsession. They're really interesting to me. And I got to 61, 62? What was I at? Somewhere around there. And Alex was like, oh, Birdman of Alcatraz. So I watched it. This is going into a whole nother review, I guess. That's okay. Maybe we'll cut it out. I really liked it. I felt like it almost felt like it could have been a 90s movie with Tom Hanks, which is something I say a lot. I say that a lot about movies.
There are lots of movies, to be fair. Yeah, that could.
It's just such an era that like I'm familiar with. It's what I grew up with, and when you see something that embodies that tone of like, it's like really well done, kind of Oscar cinema, and it does drag you along and in a way manipulate you with its Oscar-y speeches and its music, but in a way that you're okay with.
Yeah.
You're okay being manipulated by this movie because it's like The Shawshank Redemption does it, and that's one of the greatest movies of all time. Nobody dislikes that movie, and if you do, get out of here.
Yeah, and it's funny because I feel like the story of that movie, I mean, obviously it's Hollywood, it's not early Hollywood, but it's they shush it up a little bit and they make it their own legendary story rather than factual story. But it's just one of those stories where I'm like, you have to make a movie about this. There's no way that you can write, I don't know, just the fact that a man lived this life and did these things is so interesting to me. And I think that the reason I asked about this movie, though, was, do you think that this
Alex
movie
Aber?
would be The Beach now? Do you think The Beach now would have been different if it was made in 1961 or 1962? I wanted to relate this movie back to your odyssey of watching films.
Okay.
And there's something about this movie that is timeless to me in a way that doesn't mark it for greatness in the way that the word timeless usually does, but in the way that it makes me feel like the story of The Beach could be told at any point in time. And I don't know why.
I completely disagree.
Okay.
I have to completely disagree. For one thing, I will say, just for the audience out there, those millions of you who are still listening at this point, watch Birdman of Alcatraz. It's a wonderful movie. Very, very stretched Hollywood version of truth, though. I don't know if you researched it, but that guy, the fact, they do that title card at the end where it's like, he's still not been let out of prison and he's 80 years old or whatever.
I know.
It's like, if you look into it, you're like, they were worried that he was going to molest children.
Exactly.
And that guy was like an actual fucking psychopath.
Uh-huh.
So kudos to the screenwriters. They knew exactly what they needed to do.
Yeah.
They took a thing about a guy who was in jail and learned how to mess with birds into the most Hollywood screenplay ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. It works really well. And it's worth watching. But don't be fooled because it is Hollywood.
Yes.
This movie about the beach, in terms of your question, I don't feel like it could have been made at any other time other than the 2000s.
Okay.
Because the way that the world is working in terms of tourism for Leo at that moment, it feels very 2000s, where he just has that dynamic to him of I was about his age, a little bit younger, but I was about to be his age. I'm a little bit older than you and Jeff. And the way that people acted, I mean, I guess you can modify all of this, but the way that the movie becomes interesting, even though it fails, are totally neo 2000s techniques.
Okay. So,
if that makes sense.
It does. Which brings me to my other point, and I'm going to have to just apologize and say that I didn't trick you or anything into saying this, but I always say this about this movie, doesn't this movie reek of 2000s? Something about this movie just reminds me of that time period when I was alive, and I think that's what the anchor of this film is for me. I want to just say, edit it, I don't actually think that this movie could be made in a bunch of different times either. I was just saying what you were going to say because that's my whole point about this movie. Is it just captures me because it just taps into so many things that I was feeling at that time period. And I feel like that's a beautiful thing that a movie can do sometimes. It can catch you at a moment in your life or a moment in time that is just so, I don't know, there's so many nodes in this movie that I feel like I can feel when I watch it, and it just won't ever go out of style for me. And
I get that.
Yeah, I don't know. Movies just do that to me sometimes.
I get that, man. That's why the first thing I asked you in this fucking clusterfuck of a conversation was like, this has to be tied to your youth in some way, right?
Yeah.
That's why you love it?
Yeah.
Because, like, and, you know, spoilers, we're doing Donnie Darko probably 2 weeks after this comes out. Whatever. I don't care anymore. Jeff didn't show up. Fuck him. These come out on Wednesdays. Reel Weirdos comes out on Sundays. But that's what Donnie Darko was to me. It's like, it was like just, it's such a nostalgia bomb. Or movies like that, even. I won't go too deep into Darko, but there are definitely movies out there that remind me just through their DNA, like through their imagery, through their words, through their essence of who I was at that time when I saw it for the first time and loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still love movies like that. And we're going to be doing them on the podcast for sure.
Yeah.
We've already done some. Nobody watched them. Go watch our Dead Alive episode, you bastards. Come on.
Oh, really?
Dude, nobody watched that shit. Dude, my weirdo picks do not get picked up.
Aw.
It's interesting.
But Thin
yeah.
Red Line, though.
Thin Red Line? Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Sometimes they do, I guess.
That one's not a
director
weirdo
spotlights.
pick, though. That movie is great. If
That
you're
movie's
still
great.
listening now, go watch that movie right now.
Yeah, go watch the Thin Red Line and then listen to our beautiful explication of it in the Reel Weirdos, starring Jeff Casino. Yeah. Should we leave it there?
We should leave it there.
I'll leave it there. Yeah, I think watch The Beach. If you've gone this far and still haven't watched it for whatever reason, even though I don't like it, I think it's worth watching if you're a fan of like cinema and seeing what makes it tick and what makes like Danny Boyle tick. If you like Danny Boyle's movies, which, I mean, come on, you should.
Little quick note: Danny Boyle spoke negatively of the film.
Oh, what did he say?
He told a Philadelphia audience in 2017 that he realized halfway through filming that he didn't like any of the characters.
Nice. See?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Me and Danny are on the same page. I'm like, I like you, Danny Boyle, and I don't like your film. And he feels the same way. I feel fucking vindicated by that.
That's awesome. I had to do that because like that was exactly what you were saying.
Thumbs up, Danny Boyle. Just for that, we'll cover Sunshine. And with that, we're out. Reel Weirdos, 2/3 of us. Peace out, bitches.
Peace out.
Peace, love, and hand grenades.
Now our podcast is done, and we have to run. We know it is sad, but we had so much fun. Don't be bereft, Jesse, Alex, and Jeff. We'll be back real soon. The Reel Weirdos. We talk about movies for way too goddamn long. Bo 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 bo.